May 29th, 1453. The air above the Bosphorus trembles from the roar of giant Ottoman cannons. The walls of Constantinople, which for over 1,000 years seemed an unshakable shield of the Christian world, are reduced to rubble. This is not just the fall of a city, it is the collapse of an entire universe. We are accustomed to thinking of this day as the final chapter in the history of the Roman Empire. Textbooks tell us that Byzantium perished, its scholars fled to Italy, giving Europe the Renaissance, and its political legacy dissolved over the centuries. But history is rarely linear. In the chaos of the final days, when hope was fading with each passing hour, there was another scenario. What if there were those among the Byzantine elite who refused to choose between Ottoman slavery and humiliating begging for mercy from the Catholic West? What if they decided to do the impossible? Take a leap into the unknown. Relying on forgotten maps of antiquity and secret Arab pilot books, they could have chosen a third way, a path not to the east or to Europe, but beyond the sea of darkness to where the sun sets. Imagine a fleet carrying not only gold, but also blueprints, technology, and the very idea of the empire, to land it on the shores of the New World half a century before Columbus. This is the story of how the Second Rome did not perish, but was reborn in the tropical forests of America, forever changing the fate of the planet. Watch the video to the end, and you will learn how the history of Byzantine America could have changed. To understand how this was possible, we need to look at Constantinople on the eve of disaster. The city was not only a fortress, but also a giant repository of knowledge. Hidden from prying eyes, the imperial libraries contained copies of the works of Claudius Ptolemy and Strabo, who claimed that the earth was spherical. Byzantine geographers, who had been in contact with the Arab world for centuries, knew about the works of Al-Idrisi and vague rumors of lands far to the west of the Atlantic. The idea of antipodes was not heresy to them, but a scientific hypothesis. Imagine a group of influential aristocrats from the Cantacuzenos and Palaiologos families who, a month before the assault, make a fateful decision. They understand that Italy will not save them. There they will face assimilation and oblivion. They prepared a secret evacuation. In the Golden Horn Harbor, they equipped not light galleys for escape to Crete, but heavy, wide merchant ships and reinforced dromons. It is not only the families of the nobility who board the ships. The evacuation lists, compiled with cold calculation, include engineers capable of building aqueducts, doctors knowledgeable in hygiene, glassblowers, blacksmiths, and, most importantly, alchemists who possess the state secret of producing liquid fire. This was not a flight of refugees. It was the transfer of the core of civilization. At night, under the cover of Genoese ships breaking through the naval blockade, this squadron sails into the Aegean Sea. But instead of turning towards Venice, the admiral gives the order to sail to Gibraltar. They set sail into the ocean, taking the imperial eagle with them so that it can build its nest on the other side of the world. Atlantic in the mid-15th century is a feat bordering on suicide and requiring almost superhuman determination. The Byzantines have no caravels adapted to the ocean, no experience of voyages lasting many months, and no certainty that there is anything beyond the horizon. But they had centuries of experience sailing the stormy waters of the Pontus, Aegean, and Mediterranean seas, where storms could be just as merciless. Using the Azores as the last known point in the world, they attempted to catch the currents and trade winds that they knew only from the stories of the Portuguese. These are weeks of storms, despair, and prayers, when the fresh water in the barrels turns into a musty sludge and the food runs out faster than it seemed. The horizon seems endless, and every sunset could be the last. But one day, a forward-looking sailor sees not a mirage, but a flock of birds and floating branches that indicate the proximity of land, even though the men have already given up hope. The Gulf Stream, which would later help the Spanish, carries the Byzantine squadron to the coast of modern North America, as if guiding it along a predetermined path. The sailors, who had lost all sense of time, visibly perk up, for after many long months, they smell damp earth for the first time. Judging by the direction of the current, they find themselves in the area of the Savannah River estuary or the South Carolina Bay system, although these lands seem completely foreign to them. For the exhausted travelers, this is salvation, which they perceive as a sign from above. Hope returns to the ships with the first rays of the sun. The landing does not take place as it did with Columbus, because the Byzantines think differently and come with different goals. There is no search for gold on the first day, no attempts to befriend the locals for jewelry or precious stones. The Byzantines, people with a military, disciplinary, and imperial mindset, are primarily looking for a strategic point where they can gain a foothold and repel possible threats. They find a high cape, protected by a river and swamps, ideal for defense and future fortification. The first thing they do when they come ashore is not to plant a cross and proclaim the land the property of the emperor, but to start digging a moat and marking out the perimeter of future walls. Their thoughts are not of the glory of discovery, but of survival and the creation of the foundations of a new state. For the local tribes of the Mississippi culture, this event looks like the descent of the gods or the embodiment of ancient legends. Huge ships with purple sails shining in the sun give the impression of celestial objects that the inhabitants of the continent have never seen before. People in shiny armor carrying steel weapons look like supernatural beings, as the local tribes use different materials, and the unusual animals, horses, which the continent had not seen for thousands of years, were both frightening and fascinating. Local elders gather councils trying to understand the meaning of the phenomenon, and many lean toward the idea of a sacred sign. This moment marks the beginning of an era that would change the history of the entire continent. Thus, in 1454, New Constantinople, Nea Constantinople, is founded on the Atlantic coast, a city destined to become the capital of the West. It grows out of a fortress, hastily created but built with Byzantine tenacity and meticulousness. The settlement quickly became a center of trade, crafts, and diplomacy, attracting both Europeans and local tribes. The Byzantines attached symbolic significance to it, seeing it as a chance to revive the empire far from the threats of the Ottomans. For the local peoples, the city becomes a place of encounters and change, a source of new technologies and unusual ideas. From this moment on, the fates of two civilizations begin to intertwine. The main difference between Byzantine colonization and future English or French colonization was the approach to construction, which had been shaped over centuries in the besieged cities of the Eastern Roman Empire. European colonists of the 17th century built with wood and clay, creating settlements that quickly fell into disrepair, rotted, and burned at the slightest spark. Their fortifications were temporary, designed for survival rather than durability. The Byzantines, on the other hand, brought with them the ancient secret of Roman concrete, time-tested and proven in Old Constantinople. They understood that in the New World, they needed to build as solidly as their ancestors had built on the shores of the Bosphorus. This gave the colony a huge advantage. Having discovered deposits of shell rock and limestone, the Byzantines immediately launched the production of binding materials, creating new kilns for burning lime. The first quarries opened within a few months, and soon mass construction began. Within a few years, a fragile palisade that could be set on fire with a torch was replaced by a real stone citadel designed to last for centuries. The walls were designed after the legendary Theodosian walls of Constantinople, which had withstood attacks by the Huns, Avars, and Ottomans for almost a millennium. It was a triple defense perimeter, with towers for crossfire and deep moats filled with water from the river, turning the fortress into an impregnable stronghold. For the Indians, whose fortifications consisted of earthen ramparts and logs, these gray monoliths became a symbol of the invaders' indestructible power. Inside the walls, the Byzantines recreated the Roman infrastructure, without which a real city could not exist. Engineers, well aware of the dangers of swamp fevers and dirty water, built aqueducts and a sewage system using gravel filters and stone gutters. This saves the colony from epidemics of dysentery and typhus, which later wiped out the first English and French settlements. The city layout is strictly ordered. The streets run at right angles, the quarters are evenly distributed, and in the center is the forum, the heart of public life. It housed the court, market, workshops, and a place for citizens to gather. This order impressed upon everyone who entered the gates for the first time the high level of civilization. But technology, no matter how ancient and sophisticated, inevitably adapts to a new continent. Instead of the usual marble, local stone and red brick are used, which are easier to extract and process. The roofs are not covered with lead sheets, as in the old empire, but with tiles made of local clay, fired using Byzantine technology. Craftsmen learned to work with new types of wood, creating light and maneuverable vessels for river operations, which are so necessary in swampy areas. The architectural style gradually acquires a strange but mesmerizing eclecticism. Roman austerity is intertwined with the riot of tropical nature, where ivy and flowers entwine stone arches. Thus, a unique culture of construction is born, unparalleled in either Europe or Asia. The colony's survival depended on its ability to defend itself in complete isolation from the Old World. The local tribes, ancestors of the Creeks and Cherokees, were warlike, numerous, and well adapted to life in the forests and swamps. Their combat traditions included surprise attacks, skillful use of the terrain, and a close connection with nature. But the Byzantines countered the numerical superiority of the local inhabitants with iron discipline, well-thought-out organization, and a technological gap that was almost unimaginable for the inhabitants of the New World. Every step the settlers took was calculated, and every wall and moat was part of their survival strategy. It was this combination of experience and technology that became their main shield. The army was based on heavy infantry, scutati, hardened veterans whom the empire had used for centuries. In the dense North American forests, the classic phalanx was useless, as the dense wall of spears could not move through the thickets. Therefore, the tactics were changed so radically that the army effectively took on a new appearance. They switched to small, maneuverable units clad in chainmail and plate armor, which in Byzantium were called klebanians. Steel swords and axes easily cut through the Indians' reed shields and wooden weapons, meeting no resistance, because the locals had never encountered steel before. But the main advantage was psychological. The glint of steel in the sun, the steady march of heavy infantry, and the roar of drums stunned the enemy and made them doubt victory even before the battle began. However, the Byzantines had a weapon more fearsome than steel, the legendary Greek fire, which was used only in the most critical situations. The secret of its composition, which included oil, sulfur, and resin, was guarded like the apple of the eye, and only a few craftsmen specially sent with the expedition knew it. In the New World, the settlers unexpectedly discovered sources of oil and bitumen protruding from the Earth's surface, which allowed them to resume production of this weapon. Bronze siphons were installed on the bows of river galleys, true flamethrowers of the Middle Ages, capable of shooting a jet of burning mixture tens of meters. This turned the Byzantine fleet into a force that could not be challenged. Even the sight of these machines instilled fear. Imagine the scene. A flotilla of Indian war canoes surrounds a Byzantine ship, hoping to overwhelm it with numbers and maneuvering. The warriors in the canoes shout battle cries, preparing for a decisive attack, while the Byzantines wait in complete silence for the command. There is a hissing sound, like the roar of a beast, and a stream of liquid flame bursts from the siphon, turning the river into a veritable hell in a matter of seconds. This flame cannot be extinguished with water. It clings to wood, skin, and flesh, spreading across surfaces as if alive. After several such demonstrations, rumors that the newcomers command dragonfire spread for thousands of kilometers, accompanied by legends and fear. Entire confederations of tribes begin to bow their heads without a fight, preferring peace to a treaty with those who wield fire that knows no mercy. By the 1480s, the colony had transformed into a state. The Byzantines applied centuries-old diplomacy, turning barbarians into allies. The chiefs of the surrounding tribes received rich gifts: silk, glass cups, iron knives, and the titles of patrician or strategos. Their sons were taken to New Constantinople for education and as hostages. This is how the federate system was formed. Indian tribes became a buffer on the borders, supplying food and scouts in exchange for protection and goods. Active miscegenation began. The shortage of Greek women led to mixed marriages, which were encouraged by the church on condition of baptism. A generation emerged that called itself Romans, spoke Greek, but knew the habits of the jaguar and the tracks in the forest. The economy was based on a unique synthesis. The Byzantines brought sheep, goats, and pigs, as well as grapes and olives, in an attempt to recreate the Mediterranean way of life. But the real breakthrough came when they appreciated the local crops. Maize, corn, yielded harvests unthinkable in Europe at the time. Tobacco and cotton became the first export commodities for domestic trade. The church played a key role. Orthodox Christianity, with its mysticism, rich iconography, and solemn rituals, proved to be surprisingly in tune with the spiritual world of the Native Americans. Icons began to be painted in a new style. Saints acquired local features, and the backdrop was not the deserts of Judea, but the forests of the Appalachians. Fortress monasteries were built, which became centers of agronomy and education. The moment of truth came when 3 Spanish ships under the command of Christopher Columbus appeared in the Caribbean Sea. In our history, he discovered India. In this alternative, rumors of white people in the north living in stone cities had already reached the Spaniards in Cuba. The first contacts at the beginning of the 16th century, such as Juan Ponce de Leon's expedition to Florida, came as a shock. The Spaniards expected to find savages that they could easily conquer. Instead, when they landed on the coast, they saw orderly rows of infantry in shiny helmets, above which banners with the image of Christ and a double-headed eagle fluttered. When the Spanish herald announced in Latin that these lands belonged to Castile and the Pope, a Byzantine officer replied in Greek that these lands belonged to the Roman Emperor, the successor of Augustus and Constantine, and that the Pope had no authority here. This turned geopolitics upside down. For Catholic Europe, the survival of the schismatics in the rich lands of the West became a nightmare. The Vatican found itself at an impasse. It was impossible to declare a crusade across the ocean. Spain tried to attack, but its caravels, ideal for the ocean, were outmatched in coastal waters by the maneuverable Byzantine galleys with Greek fire. The colonization of America turned from an easy walk for the conquistadors into a protracted war of position between 3 civilizations. While skirmishes raged on the borders and tribes tested the strength of the Byzantines, an amazing and unique culture, unlike any other in Europe, flourished within New Constantinople. Cut off from their homeland and deprived of contact with the metropolis, the Byzantines seemed to have preserved their ancient traditions, but filled them with new content born of their encounter with another continent. The court of the Basileus, the emperor in exile, retained its splendor, as if the very fact of luxury kept the remnants of the old power from falling apart. Silk dalmatics, gold mosaics, parchment throne rooms, and elaborate greeting ceremonies continued to exist as if Constantinople had not fallen. This was necessary to maintain the prestige of power both among their own people and among their Indian subjects, who perceived splendor as a sign of divine blessing. Thus, political necessity became a cultural code. Intellectual life did not freeze or become impoverished. On the contrary, it experienced a kind of renaissance thanks to forced isolation. The manuscripts of Plato, Aristotle, and Homer, rescued from the burning city in the last days of the Old Empire, became the basis of education on a distant continent. Philosophers now discuss not the nature of divine light or theological disputes about the essence of the Trinity, but the nature of the new world that stretched out around them. Treatises on the botany and zoology of the New World appeared, written in exquisite Greek, describing for the first time opossums, turkeys, corn, and strange trees with smooth trunks. Scientists tried to understand how the new nature fit into Aristotle's previous schemes. These works would later become invaluable to European scientists if they had made it across the ocean. The architecture of New Constantinople took on a unique appearance, combining Byzantine tradition with materials from the New World. Imagine Hagia Sophia, but built not of marble, but of local gray granite and red brick, which was fired in special kilns nearby. The dome of the temple was decorated with feathers, turquoise, and carved wooden panels, a tribute to the Native American aesthetic, which the Byzantines respected and gradually adopted. The walls of the churches were painted with frescoes depicting biblical scenes against a backdrop of palm trees, cypresses, and broad-leaved plants that no one in Europe would have recognized. Even the saints in the frescoes sometimes held tropical flowers, symbols of the New World. Architects claimed that God had given them a new land, so churches should reflect its beauty. Let us imagine ourselves in the 20th or 21st century. The map of the Middle East is unrecognizable. Instead of a mosaic of post-colonial Arab states, the eastern coast of the Mediterranean Sea is home to the state of Outremer or the Jerusalem Federation. Every free inhabitant, whether Greek, Syrian, or baptized Indian, could seek justice from the imperial governor, counting on fairness based on centuries-old principles. This created loyalty and devotion to the new authority, which neither the Spanish nor the Portuguese colonizers could achieve. Indian leaders quickly realized the advantages of written laws and began to cooperate with the Byzantines. Thus, New Constantinople became an island of stability in a turbulent ocean of change. If we look 500 years ahead to the 20th century, the world map looks completely different from the one we are used to in our history. North America did not become an Anglo-Saxon Protestant power and did not develop under the influence of London or Paris. The East Coast and the South came under the control of the heir to Byzantium, the Greek-American Empire, which emerged from a small colony founded in the 15th century. Over the centuries, it has grown from an outpost of surviving settlers into a powerful center of power. It combines the Byzantine tradition of governance with the resource-rich expanses of America. The empire became the main cultural bridge between the old and new worlds. It is a powerful industrial state that developed thanks to early adoption of technology and active interaction with local peoples. Its capital, New Constantinople, is a metropolis where Neo-Byzantine skyscrapers, with arches, domes, and mosaic facades, are reflected in the waters of the Atlantic, creating a recognizable silhouette. The streets of the city are filled with a mixture of ancient symbols and the modern machine age, where electric trains coexist with massive stone arches. The official language is Greek, which has been preserved since colonial times and has become the basis for interethnic communication. The alphabet is Greek or Cyrillic, adapted for the needs of the New World. Thanks to this, Greek writing has become one of the most widespread systems in the world. Europe in this reality is significantly weakened and has experienced a completely different path. The flow of gold and resources that in our history fed Spain and later Britain was divided between several powers, and no European country was able to gain an absolute advantage. The Ottoman Empire lasted longer than in our reality because it was forced to build an ocean-going fleet to counter the American Greeks, who were asserting their influence further and further into the Atlantic. But the strain proved too great, and in the end, the vast empire collapsed under the weight of imperial overstretch and internal instability. Europe entered the 20th century not as the center of the world, but as a region competing for influence. Its political map became fragmented and dependent on external forces. World politics in this alternative history is based on the balance of three forces that determine the fate of the planet: the Catholic bloc, which includes most of Europe and South America; the Roman Empire, is based on the traditions of Rome and the Spanish heritage. The Orthodox bloc unites Byzantine America and Russia, which have developed close cultural and political ties based on a shared faith and historical memory of Byzantium. Counterbalancing them is the Islamic world, or United Asia, which seeks to preserve its identity in a world of great powers. English has remained the language of a small island kingdom in this world and has not acquired global status. Greek has become the global language of science, diplomacy, and intercontinental trade, a language spoken from Athens to Atlanta, creating a common cultural space. In our history, the discovery of America was a triumph of Western European pragmatism, which gave rise to capitalism and colonialism. In an alternative version, this event became an act of preserving antiquity. Byzantine America is not a democracy in the modern sense, but an enlightened autocracy with a powerful bureaucracy and social protection. There is no racial slavery in the form known to our history, as the Roman model of slavery was not based on skin color and assumed the integration of freedmen. One change on the decision not to surrender, but to go out into the ocean, would have transformed America from the New World into the Ark of the Old World. Antiquity would not have died in 1453, but would have been given a second chance on virgin lands, creating a civilization that combined Roman discipline, Greek wisdom, and American vitality. We often think of history as a monument carved in stone, but in reality, it is a river whose course can be changed by the slightest obstacles. The fall of Constantinople was a disaster, but it could also have been the beginning of the greatest odyssey. The Byzantine America scenario shows us how fragile our world is. Our languages, our religions, our political maps, all are the result of chance. If sails bearing the double-headed eagle had appeared off the coast of Florida, we would be living in a world where globalization sounds like Greek. Subscribe so you don't miss new versions of history.